Thigh has cleavage.
Welcome back to Let's Play Kanon. What a clusterfuck it was with the previous part. Like, as I said in my LP update thing, yeah, it was clusterfucked. Like, when I got back from the hospital, I was just like, the hospital wasn't all that bad after all, and then it's like, okay, let's finally save this file. I've been putting it off for a day, and then I'm just like, why'd you going so slow? It was going at a ridiculously slow pace, and I was really tired at the time, so my patience was very low. So I eventually said, fuck it. Next day, I was just like, okay, let's save it again. And it kept crashing a lot the previous day, but then I was just like, save it and completely ignore it. It's just on a slow pace. I can handle it now. It's the daytime. 9 hours later, not even 30% completed. I was like, nope, fuck that shit. I was just like, nope. If that's how bad it's gonna fucking be, I'll have to fricking look up a fricking video, fricking convert it to fricking change the format and see if that does any better. Which it did, because then it, like, saved it within about nearly 5 hours. I mean, that's still a lot of time, but I could handle that as opposed to 9 hours without even getting, like, freaking halfway through it. That's ridiculous. I freaking was pissed off at that. So, yeah. Anyway, let's proceed. I guess MP4 doesn't go well with Movie Maker anymore, or what? It makes no sense. Like, I guess it's because Movie Maker, well, MP4s don't seem to take up much memory, as opposed to AVI files that Frapped would record. So I guess with, like, little-sized files entering Movie Maker, he's like, that's just disappointing. But large movie file sizes, he's like, oh yes, Movie Maker, you're such a whore. What? What's that supposed to mean? My heart pounding, I wait for her to say it. No, I was thinking of, like, using the webcam for this part. You know, it was just a one-off kind of thing. But I can't really be asked. I face fault. Don't you... What? Whatever. Ouch. I only got half-eaten senbai in my eyes thanks to you. You nearly blinded me there. Well done. Anyone would face fault if you got their hopes up and then ended. With something like that, without... What the fuck was that, Yuichi? Why couldn't you... sometimes when the lines are like that, it makes like you're just like, what the fuck? Keep it in this one freaking thing. You don't need to freaking waste... oh, maybe there wasn't space for it. Do it. How about I love you? That's not the same thing, Mai. That's not quite what I meant. Thanks, I mean, it's nice to know that, but that's really not what I meant. Mai is clearly not so much being distant as plain ignorant. Trying to talk to her about this sort of thing is like trying to explain it to a primary school kid. I seriously doubt I'll get her to understand without using a 3-hour lecture with detailed diagrams. Let's change the subject instead. So he's using me as bait the new plan, then? She nods. I guess I'll be doing a lot of running, then. I hope I'll be okay. That's okay, then. Nod. I ought to be the one saying that. Yeah, I was just thinking that. It's like a role reversal kind of thing in that way, isn't it? Because usually the other way around. Like, don't worry, Mai, I'll protect you. This is all the wrong way around. That's true, I don't even have one. The reality of the situation depresses me. I did learn a bit of judo at primary school, but frankly, I doubt I remember enough to be useful. Judo wouldn't really be good against an enemy that you can't even see, though. Besides, judo is all about arms and legs, and these seem to be a bit lacking in those departments. You know, I keep, like, freaking pointing out things here and then, just for him to say the exact same thing right after it. There seems to be no way to oppose them other than with bladed weapons. Sword fighting. What about projectiles? I look away in shame as I realize my true powerlessness in this situation. Crunch, crunch. Beside me, Mai has started eating again. Again, the atmosphere relaxes at the crunching of senbei. But Mai does not appear to have lowered her guard. Straining my ears to catch any unseemly sounds over that of cheering, I feel the tension return. My gaze flicking around, occasionally shifting in on my feet, preparing for that unknown something to happen. I wait. After an hour or so of this, Mai suddenly opens her mouth. Are you sure? Nod. So you tell me he just kind of stood there as Mai was eating for an hour, and it was just silence. Are you serious? Come to think of it, what time is it exactly? The truth startles me. I didn't realize it was so late. I have to get home, people will be worrying about me. Unless I depart. Glad that for once the evening has passed uneventfully. Sunday, January 24th. I can't believe we're still freaking this is like the 30th part of this. The original freaking thing I had in mind was this would probably have been completed by now if not for all the delays in this freaking LP. Rummage, fud. Damn. Spurred somehow to action, I began this morning by diving straight into the Minase attic. I'm looking for something I can use as a weapon, and this seems like a good place to start. I'm not really expecting to find a real weapon like Mai's. Scrape! Aha! So when I find a battered old book, and I decide not to press my luck and leave the dusty boxes behind. But what if... Never mind. Shutting myself in my room, I spend the day practicing my swordsmanship. I was just gonna make a joke there where it's just like, oh look, he's found, dual-wielding frickin' dildos or something. That'd be a really random weapon, wouldn't it? But nope. Since I haven't a clue how to use a sword, I have to make this up as I go along. Still, unlike I'm a man, my greater physical strength should somewhat offset my lack of, vanity. I hope so, anyway. I also have a boken sword as well, and... freaking exhausting, man. And I, don't, use the common sense where you, use two hands. I always use my right hand more than just combining the two. A lot of the times, you just swing the sword, forward and stuff like that, and it always hits the ground, and as a result, some of, the part of it is just, chipped off and stuff. It's just, it's hit the ground so many times whenever I'd use it. Which is quite rare, because I don't really bother going out much, as you should probably already know at this point. It must look really random, because, sometimes it'd be, out on the green outside, just outside the garden, and just be swinging the broken sword around, and, throwing in a bunch of kicks here and there as well, just, trying to combine a made-up, on-the-spot martial arts with a made-up swords freaking fighting along with it. Must have looked odd. Nah, his name's Yuichi, not Nah. Yeah. Lowering the sword, I look around. Naoki is peeking in through the open door. Try knocking next time. I didn't. I must have missed it. I guess I'd fallen into a trance of sorts. So, what kind of light does this room have? Because I can't see, what the light is. Is the light on the ceiling, or is it on a wall somewhere? Probably on the ceiling, but what kind of light are we dealing with? Like, for example, my room has it's one of those, like, those lights that come down and has, like, a fan around it. That's the light that I have in my room. And, like, depending how high up the ceiling is, freaking swinging around a broken sword could potentially freaking hit the light or the ceiling. And this room just doesn't strike me as a very tall room to the point where it could potentially hit the ceiling. I guess I'd fall into a trance of sorts. What do you want then? We thought you were, doing that thing you do, and it's... Oops, sorry about that. I guess the upstairs of a wooden house isn't quite the place for this kind of energetic activity. So, masturbation is out of the question in the Minase residence. Practicing for the final battle against the demons. Well, they're armed not to still demons. Hey, I'm the one who should be worrying about, not you worrying about, not them. When I was a kid, every time it was just like, whenever someone uses a weapon in a fight like that, I'd be like, you weapon user, you coward, and all that, while I carry around a freaking giant stick all the time. I never actually would use the weapon itself, that I recall. I'd always be on the receiving end anyway. Brick to the freaking head, plank of wood to the head. I always seem to be on the receiving ends of fights. Especially when I try using weapons. That's like a big no-no. Never use weapons in battle. Just like any other freaking thing, it's like I'd pretty much end like I remember years ago, just like my brother and a bunch of other people were just scrapping and all that. And I just came out, I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Punched this freaking kid in the face like that. I was a kid at the time, so it's freaking not like child abuse, because we were pretty much around about, I was like maybe a year or two older. Doesn't matter. So I just punched this freaking shithead and then he ran off crying like that and just like, problem solved. I'm going back inside. It's just like, I can't even remember it very much, but that's apparently how everyone keeps recalling it. It's just saying, I punched someone in the face, they ran off crying, and that seemed to have, resolved the problem because everyone stopped fighting at that point. Are you telling me to go and lose? Don't be stupid, I wouldn't just be hurt, I'd be dead. It's so random to see Nayuki acting in this way, because we usually see her act like, I don't know, it seems like slightly out of character in a way a little, doesn't it? Like compared to how we usually hear from her, I guess. Speaking of which, we haven't even seen Nayuki much lately. Saying that, she retracts her head and closes the door. It must be nice to be able to think of this as only concerning other people. I really don't see us coming to a peaceful agreement with those monsters. I can imagine now, you're just like, well, demons, stop. Let's just talk this over. We'll have a sit down, here's some tea, chill, and we shall just talk this over. There's I've heard stuff in wars and all that. They just randomly. I just picture whenever I hear about this one freaking thing where it's some war or in some part of Africa years and years ago or something like that, and they stopped abruptly to play rugby or something like that. It's just I just picture someone just wow, everyone, put your weapons down. Okay, we're just going to have a day off from this war. I know it sounds kind of out of the blue and all, but here's a rugby ball, you see. Catch it, okay? Good. We're gonna have a rugby match. But just a few minutes ago we were at each other's throats and at war. It doesn't matter, man. We'll just play rugby. It's just like, that seems like really random. It's just like, why don't they just solve freaking problems in a less kind of, freaking death freaking inducing manner? It'd be really random if they freaking settle things with sport, though, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that? It's just like, man, that'd be really random. Just like, they'd just be like, okay, we just need to be really good at sport and we can rule the world! So that wouldn't seem really like it'd be much of a better idea either, because then you'd have, like, countries that are, like, really, like, corrupt and all that, like, get into even bigger power around the world and shit like that. And just because they're really good at sport and stuff like that or whatever. And it'd be kind of clusterfuck, but at least it wouldn't be wars. I think they should just frickin' just sit down and just talk about it in a more reasonable fashion. If they need something from another country, you don't just go, okay, we're gonna invade your country and steal your shit and stuff like that. Like, a lot of wars tend to, like, some wars tend to be like that. It's just like, we want your natural resources, give it to us. Or it's just like, we don't like your ways of dealing with things. We are going to invade your country and kick your ass. Just like, why don't you just chill? Just sit down and just like... It's like a freaking... If a bunch of teenagers or kids run the freaking world, it's just like... we invaded this country. Why? Because their freaking ruler called me fat. So we invaded them and dropped a bomb on them. It's just seems like really stupid. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Grasping my boken once more, I start to practice my overhead swings again with renewed vigor. Wait, is that the only light in this room? Night falls. I know I haven't practiced nearly enough, but anything is preferable to not training at all. My unused muscles still ache from the training, even though I rested after dinner to regain some strength. Still, though my body feels heavy and beaten, I force myself out of bed. Then I put on an extra of clothing against the cold. With my newly acquired weapon, which shall henceforth share in my destiny in hand, I leave my room. Today feels different from before. For once, I'm not just going to hand over some food and then hang out. I'm going to be fighting at her side. I look up at the school building looming ominously over me, then step inside. I see my comrade standing at the end of the corridor and run to join her. Right, this is where we start fighting for real. First things first, let's get the meal over with. I stop when I get within a comfortable talking distance and toss the snack bar I'm carrying in her direction. She catches it one-handed, deftly rips open the wrapper with her teeth and pops the contents into her mouth. I just picture it like, all dramatically, like, I'll take a bar and eat it! Or whatever the fuck he just threw there, I already forgot what it was. You just had to complain, didn't you? From now on, our lives are on the line. Weren't they already on the line, considering there were demons there or something? What? Why did they not have that right there? That makes it confusing sometimes when it does that. We can't afford to sit down while eating anymore. I fill my mouth with the contents of a similar package. I could easily have eaten mine on the way, but for me, eating together is one of my favorite parts of these nights. As she finishes her snack bar, my gaze falls on the contents of my other hand. Can't you tell by looking? It's a sword. To fight with you, of course. What did you think I brought it for? To pick my nose with? Can you imagine, like... I mean, a boken is essentially a wooden sword, so... I mean, if you try picking his nose with that, at least he wouldn't be like, ow! But with a real sword, he'd be like, ow, I don't know what I was thinking. He's like, my nose will not stop bleeding. Why? I was picking it with a sword. Why the fuck would you do that? That's pretty much as bad as if you frickin' just, like, put your frickin' dick in a frickin' pencil sharpener, you dumbass. I sure am. I'm fed up of always having to be rescued by you. Oh, sure. I thought you'd say that, but I can't just stand and watch. Just acting as bait and letting the girl do all the fighting. Well, it feels kind of like a monkey sending its trainer out to perform. She's always like monkeys? Well, the monkey part isn't really important. Maybe that was a bad analogy. Anyway, let me fight like a man. She says nothing. I hope her silence gives consent. So what's the plan? How do you want me to lure them out? By speaking first, I hope to fluster her into replying vaguely enough that I can... but I like. In other words, don't fight. Understood. I nod reluctantly but obediently. I take it it's okay for me to have this for self-defense, though? She doesn't reply. Instead, in a cool, unhurried manner, she raises her own blade. It would appear that the battle is upon us without warning tonight, she says, and with that, she's running. You know, I always tend to, use that type of voice, and I... ching! Just like this kind of voice, like her sword swings and rebounds from what otherwise appears to be empty air. It's like that type of freaking voice acting that's ridiculous, but I'm using it in a narrating kind of way instead. Without faltering, she strikes again from different angles. Twice, thrice. Clang! This time the sound is different, duller. That must be the vulnerable spot in Mai's opinion, as she grips her sword more tightly and raises it above her head. Unfortunately, while this may add strength to the stroke, it also makes it wider and slower. A mistake, the opening her opponent was waiting for. Just as it's about to strike, the sword begins to shake, and leaps from Mai's hand like it's alive and clatters to the floor. I don't trust your abilities. Get her sword. I consider the situation in order. The corridor contains me, Mai, the enemy, and beyond that, Mai's sword. Unless I can break through and recover that, we're finished. Ha! Yelling in what I hope is a suitably warlike manner, which it wasn't, I raise my sword and charge. Okay, let's try a warlike manner kind of thing. Ah! I strike once. That wasn't much of one. It's more of like Son of Horrors type of war cry that we should go with, where he's like, huh? There's nothing there. My weapon passes futilely through thin air. This unexpected lack of resistance causing me to lose my balance. I stagger on for a few steps. Mai's voice. You didn't even voice act that. I obey, but caught off guard, what I do is probably closer to falling over than jumping. I tumble forwards. A sharp, harsh sound so close to my ear that it sends shivers down my spine. At the same time, the sound of rushing feet. I look around. Mai is running, crouching, grabbing her fallen sword. Then, still crouching, she swings it up diagonally towards the ceiling. The sound of the air being split in two. And the sense of menace fades. Mai slowly lowers her sword. Did you get it? She nods. We did it! I made a pretty good decoy, don't you think? Mai's face holds an unreadable expression as she looks down at me, where I'm sprawling on the floor. Eh? At that, I gulp. So the demon she just destroyed was the one she wounded before. That's why it was reacting so slowly. That's why I was able to dodge its attack with Mai's help. I suppose Mai knew that from the start, which would explain why she wasn't too worried when she dropped her sword. But if that's what it's like to fight a wounded one, what would have happened to me if it had been at full strength? I guess that's why she let me attack this one. She doesn't want me to find out the hard way. She's not looking down at me anymore. She's looking straight ahead, her guard up. Monday, January 25th. Unusually for once, I wake up before my alarm goes. I dress and eat breakfast like always, and then I leave the house alone. Another day has begun. You know, when I was in school, I can't remember, like, maybe, like, when I was a lot younger, but when I was, like, say, like, back in 2002 at least, or 2001 and stuff like that, I'd like, when I go to school, I wouldn't freaking have, like, lunch at school, neither would I have breakfast before going to school. I'd just buy a drink, put it in my bag, and then when I get home, just drink that and wait for dinner. That'd be it. That's literally just how I like dealt food wise on a daily basis. Heck, I still don't have breakfast like on a daily thing. Like people just like, okay, just like 2 or 3 meals a day. For me, it's more of just eat whenever I feel like it. Basically, there's no wind. The sun pours down from a clear sky. The crisp winter air eradicates my last trace of sleepiness. It feels pretty good on my sleepy skin. It's a beautiful morning, almost embarrassingly refreshing. And already in front of me, I see a scene I'm almost embarrassingly eager to enter. Morning, you two. I clap my hands on the familiar pair of backs. Wait, back up. He said something about that he was very eager to enter, and then he claps them on the back. Does he want to enter? No, of course not. Sayuri spins around at once with a cheerful greeting. Meanwhile, my glancing around repeatedly. Is that the best you can manage? Blushing? My? Thump. Mai's first chop of the day strikes Sayuri between the eyes. It certainly sounds like it could have been fun to see. Sayuri and I laugh. Ha 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 ha. Mai doesn't seem to appreciate being made fun of. She walks ahead at great speed, glaring into the distance. Says Sayuri, laughing in my direction, and then she sets off running after her friend. It's a relaxed morning, so relaxed I could yawn. I wish my whole life were like this, comfortable and peaceful. Oh, don't we all? I mean, I've got a pretty carefree life right now and all that and stuff like that, but, you know, with my, like, too much free time and freaking issues with my anxiety and all that shit, it's not so great. But it can't be, not as long as Mai and I are forced to put everyday life aside and enter deadly combat. It makes me angry to think that how her life is being blighted by her duty. Look over the wall at the school ahead. It's a different place by daylight. By day it's safe. By day we can afford just to be ordinary students. Yeah, till lunchtime. Which is probably the classroom is warm. Well, of course it is, given the way it's packed and the level the heaters are turned up to. And the effect this has on me is equally predictable. Do I really have any choice but to be sleepy? Really, what happens next is only to be expected. Would your rather a classroom be freezing? I yawn and stretch. It would appear that the first lesson is over. When I restore myself to an upright position, I find that Yuki standing in front of me. What? What's that? She's handing me a paper bag. What did I ask for? Oh yeah, so I did. Although I gave up on that plan years ago, when I realized that I could do nothing for Mai in that regard, but there were other things I could help her. Come to think of it, I can't help but think I must have looked like an idiot, trying to make her popular. How nice. Oh, I'm ecstatic. Yippee! Pat on the head, Nayuki. Pat on the head. She puts the bag down on my desk and returns to her own. I wonder what on earth she's found me. I take a look inside. Just what was that girl thinking? The bag contains a kind of hair ornament, but not the sort that would impress me with Nayuki's fashion sense. But all I can say is that these definitely wouldn't make their wearer look like a gorilla. Stealthily, least she noticed, I stuffed the bag into the back of my desk. How about if you just get those hair ornaments, the ones that Kotomi has? Would those work for? Would those be up to your standards there, Yuichi? When lunchtime comes, I do the usual: buy a sandwich and head for the door to the roof. Today, however, the scene that greets my eyes is subtly different from normal. How so? Hey. The plastic sheet is spread out as usual, but Mai is sitting on it alone. Hey there, where's Shari-san? Where is Shari-san currently? Find out next time. But on a random note, just some of this part is thinking, you know what? With Mai and her awkwardness and have this kind of unapproachable look to a lot of people in Kanon here. I just think maybe I'm the same in a way, because I feel like I always have a kind of glare look on my face whenever I'm out in public, just walking around or whatever. Because I feel like I just have this kind of unapproachable look on my face. I feel like I'm Ryuji from Toradora or something, have intimidating eyes. My eyes aren't really intimidating, really, but when I tend to have a kind of angry look on my face for no real reason a lot of times, I think. Well, anyways, I'll see you next time, viewers. See you next time.